Hi everyone, my name is Emma. I'm your moderator for today. Just a quick background on me. So we're discussing the role of infrastructure, oracles, and identity. So I've been in the more niche part of the infrastructure called with the fancy buzzword decentralized, involved in the past 2 years. I work for Kudos, which is a cloud computing company, and I'm very excited to be with my guest today. We're gonna talk a lot about some of the projects that they do. The thing is that obviously Web3 is evolving, we wanna think so. It's becoming more complex, and while there are some projects that are purely created for entertainment or speculation purposes, meme coins, where today we were gonna be discussing the projects that I believe are like the foundational bricks for the future of the Web3 world. So let's start with the brief introductions from our speakers today. I'll just give everyone a chance to go one by one and introduce themselves.
Okay, I can start. First of all, thank you so much for being here. It's a so early hour. My name is João Machado. I'm the head of growth of Humanity Protocol. In a nutshell, what we are trying to solve is digital identity once for all. Not only the Web3 space, on the Web2 space, and we're doing this by taking biometrics on to the next level on the blockchain. And yeah, excited to be here. Thank you for the intro.
Cool, thank you. So hi all, I'm Fraser, CEO at Checked. We build infrastructure, both trust and payment infrastructure for credentials, SSI, decentralized ID, whichever terminology you want to use. And prior to this, worked for Accenture for about 6 years, working on a mix of CDBCs, self-sovereign identity with a mix of central banks, governments, and the World Economic Forum. Over to you.
Thank you. Hi everyone, my name is Eva Lawrence. I am the head of EMEA for Figment. Figment are the largest independent staking provider for institutions. So we help everyone from asset managers, exchanges, banks, custodians to stake ETH and other proof of stake tokens. I've been in crypto for almost 7 years now. And prior to joining Figment, I worked for a Scandinavian company with an exchange, brokerage, and some Bitcoin mining thrown in there for good measure, and I'm originally from Morgan Stanley. That's how I, that's what I escaped from as their head of trading for European equities.
Cheers, Eva. Hi, I'm Angus. I'm here from Chronicle. I run Marcoms over there. Chronicle is best known as the Oracle for MakerDAO. Our little fun fact, if you like, is that we were the first Oracle on Ethereum back in 2017 when we were building DAI. As you know, Maker's very recently rebranded to Sky. Chronicle is one of the entities that has spun out of the Maker ecosystem, and we're now opened up our decentralized Oracle network to anyone in the DeFi, RWA space, or anyone who needs data effectively. I have been in the space since 2018. I've always been in the Marcoms side of things. I've worked on layer ones, DeFi, investment and incubation, before winding up at MakerDAO to take on the spin out of Chronicle from the Marcoms perspective. So yeah, excited to be here with my fellow panelists today to talk about all things infra. As we know, oracles are a key part of that, as are many other things. I think Emma put it very well, the sort of foundational building blocks of Web3. So yeah, excited to get into it.
Okay, let's start. Okay, so let's start with discussing infrastructure. So can you share your thoughts on what role does infrastructure play in the Web3 scalability, and how can current infrastructure limitation can be overcome by the mass adoption? Let's start with Fraser.
I'm going to go against the question a little bit. I don't think there is a limit. I don't think there is a limitation at the infrastructure layer at the moment. I don't know anyone who's built an app at the moment, or most people that are struggling for capacity or block space. I think it was Kyle at Multicoin did some analysis and his team on how much data is stored on Celestia versus the valuation, and they looked at how much it would store to Amazon on just AWS, like cloud, and it was $48. Like that is all that is on Celestia, like as of I think January of this year. So there just isn't, I don't know anyone who's hitting capacity constraints at the layer one yet, apart from obviously on Ethereum. And so I think it will be a problem in the future. I don't think it's a problem now. And I think all the tooling is already available to go and make the most of it, would be my position anyway.
So you're saying that the limitation is that we don't have enough users?
Yeah, we need more apps. Like, we need more genuine apps building stuff for real people. Like, that, I think, is the current limitation of the industry.
I agree. Eva?
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe you could look at this a slightly different way. Is if you're talking about limitations of infrastructure, you could say, okay, well, maybe the limitations are around kind of who's building what in terms of the rails, right? So we're talking about infrastructure being foundations, but also the rails of access. And so are there limitations to those rails of access for either retail or institutional? And I think there's still some improvement there. I mean, it's a slightly different take on the question, and I definitely agree with your points, Fraser, but I think from a rails perspective, especially from a retail point of view, we need to still look at how we provide access, the seamlessness from either, accessing a particular project, swapping a token, trading, exchanging to fiat, etc. Those rails and the ease of use for a person that has no experience in crypto, that's somewhere where we still need to kind of keep improving the infrastructure.
Yeah. Just totally agree. I think a couple of examples that came out of KBW and Token for Me and WebEx actually were, they've got a load of IP over there, and some of the really big platforms with traction are NFT platforms where you use a credit card, and they've abstracted all the tokens away. That's basically their offering. And then
so you don't even know that it's crypto, right? For someone who's using it, you don't know. It just kind of crypto in the background, which is what we should be aiming for.
Exactly. And the other one was, I think, Line. They just embedded a wallet inside Line, and that was like the adoption, and just no one really knew that it was in there, but it is now. And that was the route forward, was just abstracting everything away. I guess to your point, like, they built the infrastructure to make that as easy as possible. Yeah. So totally agree.
Yeah, so I think the limitations, the way we get over the limitations is to make it seem as less like crypto as possible. And as soon as people have no idea that the project and the infra behind it is running on the blockchain or involves crypto, the better.
Yeah, not to scare them straight away from the evil crypto.
I've got a slightly different take on that, which is, I agree with everything that was been said, but I think the limitation is around, I think there's a limitation of sort of trust, and if you like, maybe a little bit of like the Lindy effect with blockchain technology. I think that's fast changing. But I think that there's sort of core elements of blockchain technology which we all know and love, which is things like transparency and decentralization, which are really like key and important factors for building trust and building this sort of trustless system that we talk about. Certainly from the point of view of finance, which is where oracles are heavily involved, having sort of more transparency and a more trustless system is a great way to sort of say to these sort of financial institutions and people who hold a lot of capital off-chain, if you want to get involved in the on-chain economy, or the what do we call it, the new web economy, then having this system which is completely transparent and allows them to sort of see every sort of thing that's going on, particularly from like a data delivery point of view, which is how oracles are involved. You're almost sort of saying, look, there's nothing to hide here, right? There's and then you introduce a decentralization aspect, and then they get that sort of added security, right? Where they're like, okay, there's no centralized party in the middle here, which is gonna, screw me, or is gonna like work against me, which is a sort of a core tenet of the Web 2 world. And the Web 2 economy is that you sort of have these little conglomerates and things that form, don't you? These little parties that come together. We're starting to see that a bit in the Web 3 world now. I think the Aave thing that came out in the last day or two, I don't know if anyone's seen it, with the way they sort of turned on Gauntlet and Morpho very publicly. You're starting to see these little conglomerates, these little entities or clubs form in the Web 3 world, but I think we need to get away from that and stick to this sort of decentralized and sort of transparent rails that we have created, and then that will unlock the new web economy truly, I think. Until we really get there and really push that forward, there's still going to be a limitation of adoption, I think, particularly from the institutions.
I love that, crypto and proud. Okay, so what key factors should institutionals prioritize when selecting infrastructure companies in crypto, and how do they ensure that it's scalable in the long term. Eva.
So we've touched on the word a few times, and the first thing I'll focus on is the foundation. So the foundation of the infrastructure should be battle-tested secure, like security and battle-tested infrastructure. So it should be the focus of anyone looking at working with infrastructure or infrastructure provider. And I think you can kind of say that no matter what area you're talking about here, really. Central to crypto and Web3 is security and is having battle-tested infra. And then if I was looking at this from an individual's perspective, I'd look at 3 pillars. I would look at product. What are they providing you? What does the infrastructure do? Is it around custody? Is it around staking? Is it around identity? Is it around banking, trading, etc.? What is it they're providing you, and why is it fit for purpose, like their infrastructure? Then I would look at the people. So who is the team or the DAO even behind the project and the infrastructure? And why are you relying on them to provide you with this infra, this service, etc.? You want that expertise to be clear, because at the end of the day, you want longevity in any infrastructure. So that will come from the team. And then you'll look at performance. So performance could be uptime, performance could be transactions, number of transactions per second. The performance could be staking, a staking reward rate. So obviously depend on what kind of infra we're talking about. But I think if you look at overall security and then the product, the performance and the people as the 3 pillars underneath, that is a good starting point. It won't be everything, but that's a good starting point for analyzing infrastructure at a very broad level.
So good old do your own research. Angus, do you want to add anything about this?
Yeah, I think this is actually a really important question, or a really important part of this topic to talk about, because to break it down, what role does infrastructure actually play in these products or in these services? And when you look at sort of any company, any product, any service, they're generally made up of a number of different infras. It's almost like a modular thing. In a lot of companies or a lot of protocols, they'll try to build out as much as they can, because that limits your sort of risk, if you like, if it's under your control. At MakerDAO, this was very much our approach. That's why we built Chronicle as the very first Oracle on Ethereum back in 2017, and we never used anything like Chainlink or anything of that nature. But it's not always possible, and particularly when you're in a competitive market and you need to, compete, right? You need to do things in a timely manner. You don't have time to build everything out yourself. So this is why the infrastructure element and this question is actually really important, because these infrastructure pieces play such a vital, critical, really, role in people's companies, people's products, and keeping them live, keeping them going, keeping them serving their customers. And as we know, there's always an alternative out there. So if the infra fails, then that's it. Sort of, you may be losing customers hand over fist, or worse. You may lose your company might actually, or your project or business might actually go under as a result. So all of the things that Eva basically mentioned are key. Particularly like what I call, well, not what I call, but what I refer to as the Lindy effect. It's certainly not my term, but that basically refers to like the reputation of a network, right? The longer a network's been running, the more the sort of the higher reputation it has, and the stronger it's perceived. And that's very much again how we approach Chronicle. When we're talking about Chronicle as an Oracle network, we say, hey, this is actually the oldest and longest running Oracle network in blockchain, right? We have the greatest Lindy effect, and therefore if you're looking for an infra that's going to ensure that data's like available to your products at all time, which is effectively what oracles do, they bridge data from off-chain to on-chain, then look at the team, as Eva said, look at the Lindy effect or the reputation, the uptime of the network, of the infra, and these aspects will guide you in making sure that you make the right decisions.
If I may just add, so I totally agree with both of you. You said security, team, and performance, right? in the end, I think it's all about credibility, right? I mean, and as you were saying pretty well, on the Web2 space, if something breaks, if something goes down, you can still recover, right? But on the Web3, if something goes down for a matter of 1 hour, 2 hours, whatever it is, there's a super high risk that you'll not coming back, right? Your project will most likely go down, either because you have a token associated with it and it's going to be literally dumped. So the risk is gigantic. And I think it's all about credibility, right?
Yeah, well, it's performance, right?
Yeah.
So the performance pillar, and that performance pillar, try and say that quickly, is really public in crypto, right? Whereas in the Web2 space, you could maybe hide behind certain aspects, but the performance and the credibility is public, and so people can verify if you are as credible or as well performing as you say.
So you cannot lie on Web3 about your credibility.
Don't trust, verify.
Why do people lie in crypto then? Okay, we touched on infrastructure. I want to move to oracles and identity because I feel like there is some interesting points to discuss in terms of also upcoming elections. So I want to get to that. But let's start with oracles. So Angus, what is the main security challenges with oracles and what users should be aware of?
Yeah, so a very quick sort of one-on-one on oracles for anyone who's not aware. Oracles are effectively like bridges that bridge data from off-chain to on-chain. If you build a product on the blockchain, you need access sort of 24, like these products are automated, right? There's not someone there clicking buttons making this product work. They are running 24/7 on their own. And if they need to know the truth of something that's happened off-chain, be it like an event, if you refer to like an election, for example, like the outcome of an election, or the price of Bitcoin, for example, which is mostly traded on a centralized exchange, which is off-chain, then you need something to bridge that data in and to be able to give you that data availability 24/7. That's effectively what an Oracle does. That's what Chronicle does. That's what Chainlink does, and some others as well. Now, the sort of the risk with oracles is that, or the security risks, I think, is what we were touching on there, is that the way that oracles are built is they're built as networks. It's not just a single entity that sits in the middle, because if it was, that would be like very risky, right? Because you're effectively giving that entity, say it was Chronicle, you're giving them the power to just report whatever they want, effectively mark your own homework, right? And say, you know, and say and do whatever you want. And if you're a DeFi protocol, which is lending out millions of dollars to people, and you're relying on the data of like what's the price of Bitcoin, and this entity in the middle has the power to report whatever price they want for Bitcoin, and manipulate that, then effectively they can drain the TVL, the millions of dollars from that DeFi protocol. So you can't just have like a single centralized entity in the middle for these Oracle networks. You have to have this decentralized approach. But the problem is that you're seeing many new Oracle networks pop up, and they are sort of taking shortcuts in the decentralization element of their network and of their business, because it allows them to deploy faster, it allows them to get onto blockchain, up more chains faster, and serve customers faster, which allows them to win this sort of competitive race with other oracles, particularly someone like Chronicle and Chainlink, who are quite incumbent in the space. But as a result, there's a huge security element and a huge security risk there. A great example of this is PIF, for example. Some of you may be familiar with PIF, but PIF uses the wormhole bridge to bridge data from off-chain to on-chain. This is a very sort of centralized element that sits in the middle of that Oracle network, which decentralized oracles like Chainlink, like Chronicle, don't use. And there's a reason we don't use it, because it's sort of like built with best practice in mind, right? Built to be scalable, right? Built to be secure, which I think is what the question was talked about. Whereas with PIF, it's secure, sure it's scalable right now, but the risk remains that if the wormhole bridge goes down, which bridges do, and which wormhole has many times, then the whole product, you know, basically the oracles just stop working, right? And that means all of the products that are using this data from these oracles stop working, right? If the market moves a lot in that time, then these DeFi protocols are left with a lot of bad debt, right? Which means that they basically have all these tokens that are worthless, and they've paid out a load of money to people and they can't, you know, make that money back. So basically, when it comes to oracles, like building out the infra in a really sort of decentralized way without these points of centralization is the key. And that's how you sort of ensure a secure and scalable infrastructure.
Yeah, don't trust bridges. I don't. How do Oracle networks maintain the integrity of the data then?
Yeah, so I think certainly in the case of RWA, it's really interesting to look at how what the best practice is for ensuring the integrity of data. The way that Oracle's do it more generally is you go to multiple sources. So let's say we're taking the price of Bitcoin, or okay, actually let's say the price of Ethereum because that's got a broader base. You don't just go to one source. You don't just go to Uniswap and get the price of ETH and USDT or something. You go to multiple centralized exchanges, multiple DEXs, and you take all of those results and you aggregate them together, and then that becomes your end result that you report. Now, when it comes to RWAs, that's a bit more difficult, right? Because RWAs are off-chain; they're not traded on multiple exchanges and for a number of things. And the real power of RWAs isn't like what's the price of oil or what's the price of gold. I mean, that's cool. Or what's the price of Apple stocks? That's cool. But the real power of RWAs is things like T-bills, right? Where you say, I've got $10 million sitting in T-bills in a vault, right, off-chain in a bank somewhere. I want to tokenize this and bring it on-chain so that it can start being put to work to generate yield or whatever in the new web economy. How can I do that in a safe, automated way? And the answer is an RWA oracle that sits in the middle and has a view of the off-chain vault, the bank, effectively. So that means integrating with the banking module, like the banking system itself. Having a 24/7 view of that vault, so you say if money goes in or money goes out, if the T-bills go up or the T-bills go down, you can immediately mint or burn the equivalent tokens on-chain and ensure that that's sort of safe and verifiable way to tokenize that money, tokenize that value. Now, Chainlink, for example, has proof of reserve, which claims to be this sort of RWA oracle, but what it actually does is it uses Harrison Trotter, which is an auditor, to say, oh, by the way, Harrison Trotter, what's in this off-chain vault? What's in this off-chain bank account, right? And Harrison Trotter can effectively just say whatever they want. So that's that sort of point of centralization. If you can give a decentralized set of validators, so many different actors, let's say everyone in this room has a view of the bank account and can say, oh, and report the figure, and you're sort of incentivized to report the actual figure, then that becomes a much safer way of bringing that value on chain and ensuring true RWA oracles, as we say.
Yeah, that sounds very interesting, and I believe there definitely will be more development on that to come. So I'm looking forward to that. And now let's discuss moving closer to what I personally find very interesting. Let's talk about digital identity. So what is the current state of the digital identity, and what is proof of humanity as a concept? João.
I'll take that one. So actually the current state of digital identity, I don't think it looks good at all. On one side, like data has been totally fragmented around the web and centralized on the companies of the world, right? I mean, Google, Facebook, we know who they are, right? That's on one side. So they are basically owning our data. I mean, on our offline world, on the real world, we are distinguished by our hands, by our eyes. But on the web, it's by our activity, right? By our actions that we take on the web. And so they are actually owning our identity. That's one part of the equation. On the other side, if you think about with the increase of bots, AI becoming so much developed, I mean today we are taking the risk actually of losing our own the ownership of our identity, right? And it's really hard today to understand if we are actually talking to a real human or not, right? I mean, I don't know if you guys saw, but there was this company in Hong Kong or Singapore, I think, that they got hacked because their finance team jumped on a call with their CFO that asked them to make this transfer, but it wasn't their CFO. It was an avatar, deepfake, generated by AI. So it's getting to AI is really, really strong at this moment, and so we either come out with this easy to implement, easy to use solution that allows us to verify that we are verified human beings on the blockchain, on the web, whatever it is. Unless we either achieve this, or I think we are going to lose trust on the web. I mean, we will not know to who are we talking with, and therefore will not trust on the web, and we'll lose the capacity to take the most of it, right? So that's the first thing. I think it's bad, but there are really interesting solutions that are coming into the market. Humanity Protocol is one of them, of course. So I think it's a really interesting space to work, and I really believe that we are trying to solve a huge problem. I'm really excited about that, and that's why we have Proof of Humanity. Okay, and Proof of Humanity, it's a simple way that we designed to prove that there's a human behind the wallet, a profile, an account, wherever it is. And we're doing this by taking biometrics to the next level. Instead of using, sorry, but it's my opinion, creepy dystopian iris scans, which means it's hardware-based, right?
I agree with you.
Yeah. Please don't do it, okay?
Oh, no, that's not how we work at all. We are not WorldCoin and never will be. It's terrifying.
Thank goodness.
Well, I don't know. I'm going to rant about it. Like, give me 30 seconds to rant about WorldCoin. Like, their whole universal basic income was basically just paying people in developing countries to scan their eyeballs. That is basically all it was. I disagree with their entire approach. It's like, they've got some privacy-preserving elements of the tech behind it, but like ultimately, I think that whole message of like, yes, this is UBI was entirely false. And if you look at where they had the most traction, it was the countries with the least strong, so weakest data protection and individual privacy laws worldwide, like almost universally. Anywhere with strong privacy laws, they basically couldn't work and they got banned out of. Germany probably being the best example.
Yeah. So they are hardware based, right? They demand you to go to a line, wait for it, and do this really creepy experience. What we are actually doing is a software based solution. We're doing palm scan, which is much more scalable and easy to implement, and you can do it with your phone, with your tablet, with your computer. So in the end, not only for digital identity, but for all the entire crypto space, I think it's all about user experience. That's how we are going to reach mass adoption, right? So I think this is a much better, easy solution to implement. And coming back to that project that you just mentioned, yes, they have millions of users, but my question is, are they valuable users for the space, for the web, for whatever it is? Because I saw in Portugal and in Spain, there was huge lines of people getting their iris scanned, but mostly citizens from those countries that you said that they just want to get the token, sell it, and dump it, literally, because they need the money. I mean, there are even some people selling their identities on other countries. And then the other ones, and that's why they got suspended in Portugal and in Spain, they were scanning teenagers' iris. And then their parents found out, and hey, they call it WorldCoin, I want to delete my son's data. Guess what? You cannot do it, right? So yeah, Humanity Protocol is solving this in a much better way, I believe, and so that's why I'm really excited to be here in the space and to develop this solution that I think the industry and the entire world really needs it at this stage.
No, I agree. I think it's a hot topic. For me, it's not very crypto related, but you know, those DNA tests where you put your DNA to give to like Chinese company and and then they store it for you and you actually pay them money for that. So that's for me.
Wait for the clones.
I know.
That's gonna freak you out.
Yeah, so then how does such like digital identity helps us? Like obviously we touched on elections. We know that in many countries elections are very corrupt. So how does it help to solve this this issue with the frauds? Oh, okay.
Do you guys mind if I take this one?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think there's actually two ways that decentralized identity solutions can really help these type of situations. First one, for example, we've been hearing that voting machines, they can be hacked. I'm not saying they were, okay? I'm not saying that someone stole the elections, not at all. But there are some proofs that they are actually really easy to hack. So if we have a decentralized identity solution that can actually, in a simple way, verify this person, this human, I think we can 100% trust the system. And that's why there's this doubt in the air if the voting machines got hacked or not. Because the system today, you cannot trust it 100%. If we could, there will be no suspicious, right? That's the first thing. The second thing, we've seen on the last elections, and I'm sure we'll see on these ones as well, a lot of fake news spreaded by bots. Okay. And so, for example, we are here for the Web3, but I think also digital identity is a really important thing on the Web2 space. I mean, Elon Musk almost dropped out of the Twitter deal because he said that 40% of the Twitter accounts are bots. They are, we know that. I'm not saying that we should delete bots, but we should distinguish who's a human and who's a bot. Otherwise, I mean, the bots are spreading fake news and we don't know that they are bots, right? And we cannot, I mean, again, we're going to turn against each other because someone is a bad actor trying to spread fake news, but we don't have an easy way to understand and to identify that it's a bad actor. So I think it can help us on both ways.
And following up, there's companies like Adobe working on content credentials. So the idea there is basically identifying where data is coming from, and then every time it's edited and promulgated, adding on how it was edited and why and who by. And some of it is even originating, I think, some of the camera manufacturers are now embedding chips into the camera where you can immediately prove the provenance of the data coming off the sensor. And then every time beyond that, if it's going through, say, Adobe Photoshop or Lightroom or anything, it's tagging on exactly how someone edited it. And so then you're relying almost on like traditional institutions to then have that lineage of where did this come from, where did it end up, is it legitimate? Because to your point, like so much content now is auto-generated, it's fake, it moves so quickly. But I think the good thing is the tech and the tooling is out there to go and identify it at scale. It just needs implementing.
Yeah, and that's how Oracle's infrastructure and identity work together. So is it time for questions? Okay, guys, does anyone have any questions for our speakers today? There is a person.
Hi, guys. I was just wondering, in regards to how we perceive identity, obviously with the emergence of deepin, I was wondering if there are new innovative ways we can kind of utilize that. For example, I've got a Hive mapper, and it's very, very hard for me to pretend to be two people with my one Hive mapper. And obviously, I'm not very, very deep into the space, and you guys know the knowledge of in regards to what's required for identity, but can you implement something like that where that would be, I guess, similar to like proof of humanity? I don't know, a bit of a broad question.
No, it's a great question. So we have built something around kind of, we call it decentralized reputation, but really it's the idea that it isn't even based on your biometrics, because a lot of people have different elements to themselves. The worst thing about biometrics, the best example here is what happened with Rohingya in Burma. They were basically like persecuted. They left to Bangladesh. The UN got a biometric database to issue aid, and then that database went back to the junta in Burma, and it was used to basically identify anyone in that cohort. So one of the ways that we've gone against that is like a lot of your interactions are based on social cues, social proofs, interactions, and building up that pattern over time. I imagine there's a lot of people in this room who know, either have done this directly or know of this, where they've sent like 5 to 6 figures to someone else anonymously based on historic Telegram, Discord interactions. And that's based on like social graph and proof that you have. And at the same time, like you may then have completely different identities on Telegram versus Discord versus your real life, and they're all different personas. So you've got to have that enabled. Like you can't have this idea of like a single identity, because it doesn't work for whistleblowers, it doesn't work for people who need to be anonymous. So you need that flexibility. So I think the tooling is starting to come, and it's starting to build off those social cues rather than like anchoring down to like, is this a real person? Where do they live? All that kind of stuff. So I don't think it's there yet, but I think the tooling is kind of coming through the likes of like VPNs and mixed nets, Tors, like all this other stuff, as well as mixing in social signals where you can actually go and achieve that kind of thing. It's needed, like it's crucial to getting this right.
Any other questions? Okay.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you very much. Round of
wrap it
applause
up.
for our panelists, please.